Hey everyone, it's Natalia Eileen, and I'm here doing another weekly wisdom. It is Wednesday morning, and on Wednesday mornings, we love to do our 10-minute tips and tricks and advice about diversity, equity, and inclusion. Usually, these sessions are at 9 a.m. Today, we moved it up to 8 a.m. because I'm out in sunny Florida, different vibes today, and I'm here for a conference. So, just to make sure that there are no conflicts and I get this information out to you, we moved it up to 8 a.m., but typically we are here Wednesday mornings, 9 a.m. Eastern, and we're excited to give you another set of diversity, equity, and inclusion tips in under 10 minutes. So today's topic is all about onboarding. I'm excited to talk to you about inclusive onboarding and what that means, what it could look like, and generally just 4 things you can do to make your onboarding experience more inclusive for your new employees. Let's jump right in with tip number 1, which is probably an obvious one for those of us who have thought about making our onboarding more inclusive, but I'm going to say it anyway. You want to highlight your organization's commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion as you are inviting folks into your organization. So that means when you're thinking about even the beginning portion of the experience before people are hired, you'll want to make sure that you are highlighting your organization's commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion and the work it's done to demonstrate that commitment. So that should be part of your employer branding and how you're thinking about recruiting folks. And that concept, that language should continue on as people join your workforce and start when the first few days come on board and start onboarding. So that is the first tip. Just make sure that you are highlighting that diversity, equity, and inclusion commitment, and especially the work you're doing to bolster that commitment. Now, the second tip maybe is a little less obvious, but still relatively common for people to think about when they think about inclusive leadership. When you are, or inclusive onboarding rather, when you are onboarding your newcomers, you want to promote employee resource groups and involve the employee resource groups. One of the ways that I've seen this work out really well is when you consider bringing on your employee resource group members as buddies. So finding ways to pair people up, giving people direct connections to their employee resource groups so that they can feel empowered to join those groups and supported throughout the process. And they'll know right away that, hey, this organization truly does value my identity because there are other folks who are like me, and there's a whole group that supports people like myself in workplace contexts. So having employee resource groups promoted so that people know exactly how to get involved, and making sure that those employee resource groups are involved in the process of onboarding, maybe through a buddy program, can be another way to make your workplace experience, and particularly the onboarding experience, more inclusive. Now, here's another one, and I think we're going from more obvious to less obvious a little bit, but hopefully you've thought about this one before as well. And if not, here's that tip. Because when you are thinking about bringing in new folks, you want to make sure that you have names and pronouns down right. So what does this mean? It means that sometimes people are not using the names that are on all of their government, certificates and all of the documents that they submitted, and to make the assumption that they do could be harmful for them. So you want to make sure that the names that you are using for people who are coming in are accurate. You also want to make sure that pronouns are involved, that you are having folks who are meeting the newcomers share their pronouns so that they make sure people feel welcome to share their pronouns back. And this is an important thing for us to make sure that our workplace experience, our onboarding experience in particular, is more inclusive. And it's something that sometimes we forget to do, or I see missing in some instances. We're making sure that people are sharing their names, sharing what they would like others to call them, and what pronouns they have, can be really powerful in making people feel even more included in a workplace culture. Now, the last one I'm going to share, again, we're going a little from more obvious to less obvious, is around the kind of support you're offering your new employees as they're coming into your workforce, specifically as it relates to either relocation or remote work location. So nowadays, obviously, we're not all working in person, but there are many instances where work will require people to be in a particular location. If we can offer relocation benefits, that can open up our world to much more diversity. It can open up our opportunities to folks who maybe think that that opportunity is not for them. It demonstrates that this opportunity is for you. And you can do something similar if you are a remote first workplace by making sure that people have all of the tools they need to work remotely, whether that be by giving folks a stipend so that they can, you know, get together all of the cool things that make their lives easier in a remote work environment, or so that they can do whatever they need to do to step away from their desks and feel rejuvenated. So these kinds of things, ensuring that onboarding includes relocation and or remote work location support, can be powerful. Let's go quickly through these 4 tips again for inclusive onboarding. And I mentioned that they go from more obvious to less obvious. And maybe you've thought about a couple of these, but my hope is that these others, or the other ones that you hadn't thought about, are percolating some interesting ideas for you and helping you bring about a more inclusive onboarding experience. So, as I mentioned, the first onboarding experience we want to be thinking about is highlighting your organization's commitment to DEI. The next is promoting and involving employee resource groups, maybe through a buddy program. Then you want to ensure the integration of names and pronouns, because we want to make sure that people feel comfortable to share and are always called by their names and their appropriate pronouns. And then you also want to consider relocation support and or remote work location support, because we want to make sure that the people who are trying to make this opportunity work are able to do so in a way that is not exclusive to those who can afford it. Amazing. We just went through those 4 tips. And as I mentioned, we do this in less than 10 minutes every Wednesday morning, usually at 9 a.m. Eastern. But let me make sure that if you are interested in learning more about us, you can. You're welcome to find us on cnetwork.com/consultation. Schedule a consultation with us at any time. And we would love to chat with you about your diversity, equity, and inclusion needs. Similarly, we are also here on various social media platforms, on Twitter, on Instagram, on YouTube, on LinkedIn, and we also have a newsletter that we absolutely invite you to subscribe to. cnetwork.com/newsletter is where you can find that. And with that, in less than 10 minutes, you've just gotten a little bit of information on how to make your onboarding experience more inclusive. And I'm always happy to offer more support. So come find us on our social media channels, and I'll see you soon. Thanks, everyone.